Hello from North Carolina. This is our 22nd live session. Our plan is to go live every Tuesday at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time to share fashion industry news from the previous week. If you are team replay or team live, let us know that you are joining and where you are joining from. And that is my prompt to switch my banner up here. So again, let us know if you are team live or team replay and where you are joining us from. So I'm Rosalinda Cruz, founder and chief business development officer of the ASOR Collective, where we help underrepresented leaders in fashion with strategic planning and advising. Our mission is to create a more diverse and inclusive sustainable fashion industry by filling the leadership and ownership gaps in the apparel supply chain. So on these lives, I try to reconcile my love with fashion and retail with my values around sustainability, diversity, with sustainability, diversity and inclusion. So I advocate for supply change, and also I try to raise buyer awareness. So my goal is really to get out of the silo effect and work across sectors in the fashion industry to create solution-based conversations versus hair splitting debates, right? Because there's a lot of those. So I think that we have to be more comfortable speaking the truth, whether it fills the room or clears it out. So that is the point of our conversation. You guys know that I love a good agenda. So in our time together, I try to cover, I do announcements and planning PSAs. They cover North Carolina news, North Carolina, #1 textile producing state in the US, product, service, workforce, and then the green carpet. So the green carpet is where I talk about brands, concepts, and processes that are being called to the proverbial carpet. So the other thing that I wanted to mention is that, and I'm going to check our comments here too. So I want to be able to pull them up in case we have somebody joining us live. We've had a lot of people join us during the replay. So I want to thank all of the replayers out there. But we are trying to increase our subscribers on YouTube. So if you haven't done so yet, please go to our YouTube channel and hit the subscribe. And we're trying to get to a goal of 100 subscribers. And once we do get to 100 subscribers, there are a lot of features that are going to be unlocked, which we are really excited about being able to take advantage of. And I will be sure that I drop that in the comment section. So let's get into it. All right. So announcements and planning PSAs. So what do I want to talk about here? All right. One, we are just a few weeks into the second quarter. If you haven't done so already, make sure that you set aside time to reflect on what happened during the first quarter. So first quarter, obviously, January, February, March, the first 3 months of the year. And one of the things that I also want to add here is the reason why this is actually so important is because it is going to save you so much time when it comes to planning 2023, because before you know it, you're going to need to be planning into that, right? So making sure that you take the time to reflect on what happened, what worked, what didn't work is going to save you time. One of my favorite lines, it takes time because it saves time. So let's put in that work on the front end while all of that information is top of mind, and it's going to save you some time in the long run. And I always talk about my planning cadence where you can do your strategic planning in 25 hours in a year. And this is part of that cadence. And once you kind of once you're in the groove, it will allow you to contain your strategic planning hours to 25 hours. So another thing that's really important to do now is fine tune your May strategy. So last week I posted something called the In the Coming Weeks. That's a section that I include in my biweekly newsletter. Sign up if you haven't already. And in that post, it kind of gives a breakdown of where you should be from a design, sales, or marketing perspective. And depending on what your business is, you may need one or the other or all three of those. And if you're a consumer, I think it's cool just to know. I nerd out over industry stuff. So I think that it's an interesting post, but definitely go check it out. Next week on our live, and I wanted to put a plug in for this because something that I wanted to talk about last week I wanted to talk about it. This week I wanted to talk about it, and I realized that it actually makes more sense to dedicate more time to it next week. But one of the things that I really wanted to talk about is the cost of showing up, right? And what that looks like. And, last week it came up for me because, to be perfectly honest, I didn't want to do the show last week. I had so many things happening in my personal life, and I ended up, showing up a little bit late as a result of it. And I showed up, and that was fine. Today, literally minutes before I'm getting ready to go on, I get a call from the hospital because fortunately my dad's in the hospital and had to have emergency surgery yesterday, and he is being well cared for and in good hands. But I was 5 minutes late, and you know what? Who cares? Who cares? Right? But I feel like sometimes we beat ourselves up when we can't show up the way we intended to. So that's something that I really, really want to dive into in a much deeper way next week. So I just wanted to mention that. All right, on to the next topic. And of course, I wanted a sip of water, and I don't have my cup here, so I'm going to have to suffer through this. But in North Carolina news, so there is actually, this is fun, but there is a musical called Denim King. Tickets are on sale now. It is going to be performed in Greensboro. I don't remember all of the details off the top of my mind, but it talks about sort of North Carolina, white cone, the manufacturing history of denim. It is going to be really, really a really great show. It's going to be, I know that they have a week's worth of performances. For the most part, one performance a day. I think on the weekends, like Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, there may be 2 shows. Prices are very reasonable. I believe it's under $20 for a ticket. So definitely check that out if you are interested, if you are local, or if you are going to be in North Carolina. And also, if you are interested in North Carolina history, history around the textile industry, or if you're just a denim head, right? Which we've got sneaker heads and we got denim heads. So if you are interested in that, definitely check that out. Also, there is a clothing swap that is happening, and I can't recall who the organization is. Oh, the Greater Good Textile Group is actually hosting a clothing swap, and they are a group at NC State. NC State, the Poole School of of Sustainability is actually hosting another speed networking session with impact entrepreneurs. Last semester when they did that, I was lucky enough to be able to participate as one of the impact entrepreneurs. It was a really, really great event. I love meeting with emerging leaders, and I feel like completely energized by connecting in with them, and I feel like I'm always learning. So yay to them for putting on that event again. Woo! Wish I had that water. Talk about the cost of showing up. Sometimes you show up thirsty, right? All right. So in industry news, this is actually something that a post that I saw last week from my friend and former colleague at Eileen Fisher, Amy Hall, posted. So about a fundraiser that is taking place for the Triangle Shirtwaist Factory. So for those of you who don't know, on March 25th, 1911, the Triangle Shirtwaist Factory caught fire, resulting in 146 deaths. And ultimately, that is what led to workplace safety laws for American factories. So they are looking to raise funds to create a memorial, which is actually just around the corner from Washington Square Park. So I will be sure to, again, add that link to the comment section for those who are interested in donating and helping with that fundraiser. So there is that. The other thing that I wanted to, you know what? I'm gonna do it. I'm taking a swig from my carafe. I'm too thirsty. Sometimes you got to do it. All right. I feel like it was just sitting there taunting me. So in any case, the other thing that I wanted to talk about in industry news, which was really great, last week I was able to sit in on the monthly organizer call for the Pay Up campaign, which was really, really great. It was so nice seeing Elizabeth Klein. I have not seen her in a really long time, but I was sitting in on behalf of Beth, who is the executive director of Redress Raleigh. Those of you may or may not know that I'm on the board of directors for Redress Raleigh. I think that was actually one of the first organizations I connected with when I moved down to North Carolina. But I sat in on that call, and it was really, really incredible. Very knowledgeable and passionate group of people, and some of the things that we talked about, I thought would be great to share here on our lives. But obviously, a lot of this information is tied to the Pay Up campaign. And while I don't have official talking points in front of me on what that campaign is, I will I'll give a little overview based on my best recollection and knowledge of what it is. But as many of you know, or maybe you don't know, that at the beginning of the pandemic, there were a lot of brands who canceled orders that were already in process, causing a lot of garment workers who are already highly exploited to go without pay. There was a lot of factory closeouts. It just had a devastating ripple effect. So the Pay Up campaign was born to highlight brands and ask them to pay up, right? Pay for the goods that are already in production that you requested, right? I won't get into it, but a lot of the burden of, you know, creating product sits on the shoulder of the factories, right? So how do we work towards creating systems and policy where that burden is actually equally held, or, you know, done so in a more balanced way. In any case, so one of those companies was Victoria's Secret, and they actually have not paid up, right? And so they actually came out with a statement around that, and they are working with the Brilliance Alliance in Thailand around payments. So one of the things that's really interesting too is that when they shared the link to that post, I was expecting it to go to victoriassecrets.com, but this website, which I didn't realize, they have a separate page for their business, which I don't know. I don't know if that's clever or sneaky, because one, people who, you know, their clients or people who shop their brands will not know what their involvement is or has been. I don't think that many, you know, everyday people know to look for these statements through this Victoria's Secrets and Co.com. In any case, their statement is on there, and regardless, I'm happy that, you know, that they are going to honor their obligations, and are going to be making payments on that. In any case, and they are also, we talked about the brands who have not signed the accord, and you guys know that there was, I think it was previously called the Bangladeshi Accord. I can't recall what it's being called now, but this was the accord that was created as a result of the Rana Plaza collapse. That accord was up for renewal, and there were many brands that re-signed that accord, but there's still a large group of brands who still have not done that. So I will again be sure to share that link in the comments. For those who have signed up for the show notes, you will also get a copy of that. Also in industry news, NRF, which is the National Retail Federation, released their top 50 global retailers. And again, like, I thought it was so interesting, or I thought it was interesting that many of the brands who were on this top 50 list are brands who ended up either on the Pay Up campaign list, or if you guys recall, I've referenced Remake came out with another report where they evaluated, I believe it was 50 brands, and kind of like gave them a score. A lot of these same brands were also on that report and had low scores. So I always like to look into the methodology of a lot of these reports, and I feel like because of the methodology, a lot of brands are left out, and I would say mostly small to medium-sized enterprise. So again, making sure that you are scratching the surface a little bit when you see these reports, or, you know, these accolades and awards. What is the methodology? And I will again be sure to share that in the comments and in the show notes. So, all right, product. I didn't really have any update on product, or really in service and workforce. Again, not to say that there wasn't any, but as you guys know, I kind of go through, you know, newsletters, my news feeds, be it on social media, LinkedIn, and kind of extract any information that resonates with me and that I think would resonate with the audience. So I didn't really have anything that I really wanted to extract. So here we are. Here we are at the green carpet. I'm gonna take a swig from my carafe here. Boy, that was a big gulp. Give myself a water mustache there. Okay. Ah, the cost of showing up, right? So first, I feel like that's going to be a term that's on repeat for me. Um, but part of what the cost is for me is like showing up unapologetically as myself, and this is what you get. This is what you get. So in any case, back to the green carpet. So the green carpet is where I talk about brands, concepts, processes that are being called to the proverbial carpet. There is no shortage of ethical dilemmas within the fashion industry. There's a lot of siloed discussions, a whole lot of infighting between whether it's farmers, manufacturers, vendors, academia, brands, journalists, activists, you name it, right? And let's not forget about the gatekeepers, right? Because there there are a lot of them out there. So it can be pretty intense, right? To be perfectly honest, and it can be rather contentious. But this is an invitation to a conversation where I really try to activate my superpower and listen for understanding and be open to dialogue, right? So I want to also own the fact that though I have been in the industry for 30 plus years, I don't know everything, right? I don't. I don't, and that's okay. I also get things wrong sometimes, right? It's really impossible to know everything. So please bear with me as I actively practice calling people in versus calling them out. So it's going to be interesting. And again, just bear with me as I figure out what that looks like, right? In the context of sustainable fashion. And I also wanted to call out that I was like, wait, I'm calling people in, not calling them out. But I also wanted to highlight that this calling people in versus calling people out concept really came to me from a radio show that I heard on NPR with Professor Loretta Ross, who is a professor at Smith College, and she's also going to be delivering the commencement speech at Hampshire College, my alma mater, and I am grabbing my hands because I'm trying not to do that. Look at, I almost did it. I wanted to raise the roof. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it. Keeping my hands down. But I love Hampshire. And it's so interesting. I feel like I'm based in North Carolina. Obviously, I still have some great ties to Massachusetts, but I feel like almost on a weekly basis, I am being introduced to people in the industry who are doing absolutely amazing things that are based in Western Mass. I actually met one during the pay up call. So yay to Mass. In any case, part of the reason that I do what I do and advocate for the marginalized is because I was discouraged to succeed and still am to an extent, right? And that discouragement comes from individuals, it comes from brands, it comes from institutions. It's baked into a lot of the world today, unfortunately, right? And some of our barriers are access to information, access to capital, but I also feel like it is also access to opportunities. So my goal, as I mentioned earlier, is to get out of the silo effect, work across sectors in the fashion industry, and create solution-based conversations versus hair-splitting debates. So let's get into it. So one of the things that I actually wanted to talk about, and again, I'm freestyling here, but Challenges, right? I want to talk about challenges, and I feel like there's a double meaning here, right? I think that one, I reference the ethical dilemmas that there's no shortage of in the world, but definitely within sustainable fashion industries. But we are also in the midst of Earth Month, right? And there are a lot of challenges that are being asked of us as consumers. So there are a couple of challenges, right? That have been proposed, and this is probably more of the lighter part of the conversation. But on a personal note, I decided to take part in the Fiber Shed Challenge, and I get prompts on a daily basis on how to think about my wardrobe differently. And one of the things that I have been struggling with and just like more aware of during the pandemic is one, recognizing that while I am an expert in the industry, I'm still a consumer and I fall prey to, a lot of the things. Behind me, you can't see it, but is like one of my three closets, and it's a mess. It's a mess. And it's a mess, even considering that I go through and organize it on a regular basis. But one of the things that I have also decided to do is I I really want to have a capsule collection, right? I I've worked with some people on, creating their own capsule collections, but I actually want to create a spring summer capsule collection for myself. There's a popular challenge on social media, the 10 by 10 challenge, where you only wear these 10 pieces of clothes for 10 days and you create multiple outfits. I don't think I could limit it to 10, but I'm gonna max out at 30, but really, really, really try to keep it to something under 20. Also, prepare to be sick of it right here, this dress here, because I am going to wear the heck out of it. I love it, and I love dresses, and I have a couple other dresses that I will that will be on repeat. You saw my little light dress from last week. I've got a cute little rainbow dress. So I feel like I probably have like 10 super cute, versatile, easy to wear dresses that are going to take up a good amount of these pieces. But that's the lighter side of it. The other challenge that I want to talk about is the work challenge. And I guess this probably should have come up with some better talking points about this, but I think that this is something that overlaps the personal and the professional side of things. But one of the things that I wanted to talk about is or I openly talk about my sort of struggle with my love for fashion and retail, right? And my values around sustainability, diversity, and inclusion. So one of the things that I wanted to talk about are brands, right? How do you support them as an individual? And man, that is really hard. So, and I'm gonna back it up here. I'm gonna back it up and I'm gonna try and rein it in. But what prompted this thinking was you guys know that I worked, I worked for Eileen Fisher for many, many years, 17 years to be exact. I have a tremendous amount of friends and colleagues that I'm still connected with, either personally or professionally. And one of the things that really has really shocked me is the amount of them who have gone from, working for, I would argue maybe like the poster child of sustainability or sustainable fashion, to companies like Amazon or Walmart and H&M. And I was really shocked. And I would say actually a lot of them are working for Amazon. And this is like no shade at all, because I want to be very clear that being able to say no is an absolute privilege, right? And sometimes you have to put food on the table, right? You have to put food on the table. But one of the things that I'm curious about is how, even if you have to make a choice about working for a company who's, damn it, I'm going to put this is our timer here. If you have to make the choice to work for a company whose values and practices are in conflict with yours, how do you reconcile that? And one of the things that I also wanted to talk about, and I think I may have mentioned this on previous lives, is that, despite the fact that your company, right, may not be in support of, right, a lot of the things that you support, as an individual, there is still power and ways that you can make impact. So I kind of challenge people to think about what that is, right? Is it a choice in what vendors you work with? Is it a choice in how you work with people or promote people within your organization? I don't know. What does that look like for you? And how do we make impact sort of at that individual level without, again, burdening ourselves? The other thing that I wanted to also, full disclosure, I used to work for Walmart, right? And it happened. I don't want to say by accident, because obviously, like, during the interviewing process, I learned that it was a Walmart-owned company. But and also just missing being in the trenches of retail. And I went to work for Bonobos, who is, while they don't, right, it's a men's clothing company that is absolutely fantastic. I love them so much. And I really admired them as a brand because they were doing things differently. I love their model. I love the fact that they went from being an exclusively online company to then having a brick and mortar location. I love the concept of not having the inventory in the store and treating the store more like a showroom. I also knew a lot about women's fashion because that is where I spent the bulk of my time. And I really wanted to learn more about men's fashion. And that was an excellent place to do it. The clients were amazing. My coworkers were amazing. I mean, it was just a really, really fantastic experience. But they were owned by Walmart, right? And I got to experience Walmart from a different perspective. And Walmart is one of those names that appears oftentimes on these lists, whether it's the pay up list. I know that they got a really, really low rating as part of the report that Remake did. But Walmart is also doing some really, really great things, right? So how do we separate the baby from the bathwater, right? When it comes to these brands. The other thing that I want to acknowledge that is really, really incredible, and I mentioned last week, but Johnny Hackett Jr. and his company, Black Dollar Corporation, they offer commission-free retail space for Black-owned businesses. So it is a really incredible marketplace for Black-owned businesses. Everything from beauty to artworks and food. Also, I believe they have a section of refrigerator with some foods and snacks in there. In any case, they have been doing some really, really incredible work. They actually are the recipient of, I believe it's a grant, but they are getting some funding from Walmart as a result of their diversity and and equity work. And they are opening this month in downtown Raleigh, North Carolina, the factory, which is going to be a co-working space and a mini factory for Black-owned businesses. And they're going to be offering education and a lot of really, really great stuff. So those are the things that I want to celebrate. The things that I want to celebrate. Another company that came up was H&M. So H&M, I feel like they are oftentimes in the news regarding their business model of fast fashion, which is about consumption, and there are definitely a lot of debates around whether or not you can truly be sustainable if your business model is really based on the notion of overconsumption, and that is what you're trying to promote. H&M is also a company that has been accused of greenwashing and a lot of other things. And they have also been a huge, huge investor in technology regarding upcycling of materials, right? So they have been, and again, while we cannot upcycle our way out of the environmental impacts of the fashion industry, they have been a huge investor in developing technology to help advance that. So again, do we snub our nose at that? How do you separate the baby from the bathwater? So again, this is another one of those ethical dilemmas. And I am not necessarily, part of the work to affect change in these larger organizations, but I'm curious to see how those conversations are framed, and whether there is more calling out versus calling in as a result of these conversations. And while I can't, I don't like to make sweeping statements. I do want to say that my belief in people and organizations' ability to change isn't conditional. I do also acknowledge that there's some bad businesses out there that just don't really care, and will continue to do that greenwashing. But how do you frame the conversation that really allows people to come with their shoulders down, open for discussion on what the true challenges are, why they are or aren't able to make change, and kind of start from there. So my timer went off a long time ago, and that was my little blab about that. But that's what I wanted to talk about. Challenges, right? Challenges. In any case, we are out of time. Announcements. I just wanted to recap. I released a newsletter last week. For those of you who do subscribe to my newsletter, that newsletter will be released this week on LinkedIn. I can't even remember what I talked about in that doggone thing, but in any case, again, check out the post that I did last week regarding in the coming weeks. Next week, I want to. Next week also, I forgot to mention. Next week is our anniversary. This is my little shimmy dance. My dance moves have suffered over the years. I just want to mention that I have a really, really hard time catching a beat. But I try because I love dancing. But in any case, next week is our anniversary. I can do this little shimmy because there is no beat that I have to keep up to. In any case, we are going to talk about what the cost of showing up is, right? And one of the other things that I wanted to talk about next week is retail made me do it. This is something that I referenced, I want to say, during the holiday season, where there was this post trending about all of these really awful things that people were forced to do, in being forced to show up for work, whether it was, a family member on their deathbed and their manager urging them that they needed to show up for their shift, or destroying merchandise versus donating it to a women's shelter. I mean, the list goes on. So we are going to dig into the cost of showing up next week. So please join us next week, Tuesday at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, for the most part. Our mission is to support a more diverse and inclusive sustainable fashion industry by filling the leadership and ownership gaps in the apparel supply chain. So please join us next week. Thank you for those who joined us live or during the replay. I will see you next week. Bye.